yesterday I started off in a, I don't know, kind of this marketing mode a little bit, and I really want to follow through on that today with the notion that a lot of your responsibility in regard to your department team is about marketing activity, about marketing success, all right? We came to a conclusion that marketing is not exactly selling. Marketing is more about what? It's more about communicating what? Vision? Well, that's part of it. It's more about whom, I should say. It's more about them than it is about you. All right? It's more about my partner than it is about me. It's much more about making sure that they feel more than satisfied in our relationship and in our results than that they care necessarily about the struggles that I personally am having with my support or the birthday of my child or any of those other kinds of things, depending upon who that partner is. The critical issue is in knowing who the partners are, understanding what matters to them, and delivering what might be termed value to them in the relationship over time. All right? We're going to talk this next session or two about how we can delight our partners. And why are we interested in delighting our partners? Anybody want to offer a guess on that, Alex?
Stay with it.
Stay with us.
Because it's better than satisfying.
It's much better than simply satisfying them, all right? There are levels of delight, I'm sure, but if you're on the lower scale of having a delighted partner, it's at least 10 times better than being on the lower scale of having a satisfied partner. Well, are we kind of satisfied? Are we dissatisfied? Are we satisfied? Are we a little more than satisfied? Are we really satisfied? See, if we're delighted, that eliminates the need to try and hit one of those other targets. In our company, McConkey Johnston, we have kind of a catchphrase that we use with our organizational clients. We say, you need to be about the business of pursuing relentlessly delighted partners and donors for your organization. The relentless pursuit of donor delight is what the development task is all about. All right? And the task itself boils down to a couple of easy steps. We've talked about those steps, but I haven't really indicated what they are. It boils down to what we call the 4 laws of development. All right? The 4 laws of development. I'm an old Campus Crusade guy. You know, they had the 4 spiritual laws. We have the 4 development laws as well. All right? You got to find people. You got to win them. You got to keep them. And you got to lift them to more and better and higher levels of involvement and satisfaction and delight with you in your ministry. Okay? The 4 laws of development. Find, win, keep, lift. What do you suppose this next couple of sessions is all about?
Find, win, keep, lift.
Keep lifting.
Keeping people and lifting people. All right? Keeping them and lifting them. That's what donor delight is all about, all right? When people give an initial gift to an organization or to an individual, oftentimes it is an exploratory kind of thing. What's going to happen when I do this? Am I going to get thanked in a timely fashion? Is it going to be a sincere thank you? Is it going to address me by name, or is it going to say, dear donor, thank you for your gift, you know? Are they going to ask me continually to donate or give to them or their organization? Am I going to receive a bombardment of direct mail from them or their organization? They're going to treat me like a person. Do they care what I think? All of those sorts of things. We need to be able to show people that they can count on us to deliver real quality, real value in the relationship. All right? That's part of your task. Regardless of whether you're a field missionary or a home staffer, you've got to deliver value in the relationship. And the best way that you can do that is through how you communicate with people. And when I say communicate, that entails a whole variety of things. Whether it's written communication or face-to-face visits, or whether it's phone calls or emails or websites or any of those kinds of things, all of that is about delivering value in the relationship, in the relentless pursuit of that person's delight. Okay? Alex?
You just said something that hit a sore spot for me.
All right.
And some of our donors. Are they going to get a whole bunch of direct mail once they get on the mailing list? Our organization looks at the donors as being their donors. We look at them as being our donors.
That's true.
And they're going to send them all, well, I don't know how much direct mail, but they do send them some direct mail, and some of my donors have objected strongly to that. They don't want to get anything from the organization, they're supporting us. The organization will turn it around and say, yeah, but if it wasn't for us, you wouldn't be going anywhere.
That's true.
So how do you deal with that?
Well, you know, it's interesting because this is one of those battles that you find that goes on between a missionary and their sending organization. To whom does the donor really belong? Legally, here we are, compliance over here. They are the resource is the property of the organization. All right, and that's why most organizations have that policy. They are a resource of this organization. The data belongs to us. We're responsible for the safeguarding of that data, for the safeguarding of the relationship, etc. And that's what gives a lot of organizations the right to intervene in your relationship with those partners if you're doing a bad job with it. Problem is, a lot of organizations don't do that. Now, the other issue that was the first part of your question was the direct mail that they may start getting from my organization. Why would it be a problem if they heard from your organization now and then? If your organization is continuing that process of cultivation that you began in the first place, helping raise the vision of those people, helping them see how they're a part of it, helping them see how your role in all of that makes a difference. But I know what you're going to say. That's not what they do. They send out appeals. How many, you may not know. Typically, an organization, if they're smart, will do that. They will ask your partners once or twice a year for an extra gift. Depending on what that gift is for, it will either bless those partners or it'll turn them off. All right? It'll turn them off. And I will tell you this, those organizations that are able to generate an additional gift for the organization, as well as maintain your support, those partners are the most valuable partners that you can have. Statistically speaking, people who give to the organization as well as to the donor give on average 21% more to you as a result of that relationship. We've demonstrated this again and again and again in a number of different missionary organizations that we work with. And when the missionaries find that out, suddenly they don't mind so much that, oh golly, you know, you guys are sending mail to my people. Well, it helps you when they do. If you and the organization work together to cultivate that relationship, it can pay off hugely for you as well as your ministry organization. Okay? I don't want to get into a big discussion about that because we got a lot of other ground to cover here. But let me just say, again, yesterday I said how your organization can be a tremendous asset in your relationship with your partners. But you've got to use that correctly, okay? If it's adversarial, it's going to create problems. And if your organization doesn't understand that it can be adversarial in your eyes, then they have work to do with you as well in helping come to an agreement on how this can work and benefit everyone. The partner, the organization, and you as a missionary, all right? It's that way. Just trust me. Just trust me. It works that way. All right. I want to share a couple of things with you that you might find to be interesting. I want to help you to see things perhaps a little bit differently in terms of your support and maintenance tasks, and give you some things to think about and some practical tools and maybe a couple of exercises here that will help you do some of that better. Here's one of the problems. This is what a lot of people think, all right? I put all this time and effort and energy into my prayer letters and into my communications, etc., and this is what it should be like. They should be there looking for my stuff, and it's a myth because they're not looking for your stuff. To be honest with you, they usually don't find your stuff in the stacks of mail that they've got to go through. If it's like my house, one end of our dining table is reserved for the mail, particularly at this time of year because we have 15 catalogs a day that are coming into our home.
That's right.
Our Netflix DVDs are arriving on a daily basis. We've got the bills, we've got, our relatives' Christmas cards, we have all of those other things. And oh, by the way, somewhere in there is the white number 10 envelope, that came from the missionary that we're supporting. And I'm going to pay attention to that right away? No, I'm not looking for it. I don't expect it necessarily. And usually it's not very good. So where does it wind up? Bottom of this stack of 3 days worth of mail on the end of the dining table. Because, is it the fault of all of those other distractions that I have? No. But how do I compete with all of those other distractions? When I continue to do the same thing again and again and again and again. Oh, whenever I hear from this missionary, it's all of a sudden a white number 10 envelope, and guess what? It has a label on the outside, and it has a bulk mail stamp on the end of it, and there isn't anything there to make me want to read it necessarily, because that's the only thing I get from this missionary. Right? Not necessarily a great ingredient in terms of delighting me as a partner. All right? There are other ways that we want to be able to pursue this. The things we're going to talk about here in these sessions, these last 2 sessions of the day, I want to shift your paradigm a little bit. We've tried to do that throughout the course of our time together. Take it off of you in terms of what you have to put into your mail, what you have to put into communications, and shift that focus to your partners. We want you to understand your partner's values and expectations, so it will help you to do that better. I'm going to share some information with you that is not really in your notes too much, but it will help you understand better how to communicate with them on their terms rather than yours. I want to help you realize that your purpose of communications is to take outsiders and turn them into insiders. All right? That's what a lot of this discussion that we've had over the last 2 days has been all about. Taking people who you see as peripheral to your ministry and forming real partnerships where they're no longer on the outside, and contributing, but they are right next to you and vital partners in the work that's being accomplished. And as a result of that, together you can enjoy the results. All right? I want to share that with you a little bit more. And I want to give you some real tools that will help you plan your communications for your partner's sake and for the sake of your ministry together. All right? First, let's talk a little bit about shifting your paradigm. The purpose and power of regular communications is something that you need to think about, and then begin to put into practice. Right? I always refer to my dear Aunt Lillian. She's gone now, bless her heart and rest her soul. But my Aunt Lillian was one of my favorites. She was just a favorite of mine. And one of the reasons she was a favorite of mine, not only because I would go and stay at her house when I was a kid, and she'd expose me to all kinds of new foods, and I could stay up late and watch Johnny Carson and all kinds of things that I couldn't do at home. But she would always communicate with us in a variety of ways. Right? She'd write a little letter now and then, say, "Hey Jeff, how you doing in junior high? Know you're in 7th grade. What you going through? Tell me about your subjects," all that kind of stuff. And she was interested in me, and it made me interested in her, and it made me want to, despite the fact that I was a junior high kid, with all of those peer pressures and everything else, it made me want to relate to this dear little old lady who was my father's aunt, and she became a valuable part of my life. I loved going to visit her home. I loved going and mowing her lawn. I loved a lot of those things because she showed that she appreciated me. And it made me value that relationship. And the special thing that I looked forward to every year was that on our birthdays, my Aunt Lillian would send us a card, and she'd send us the amount of money that matched the age that we were becoming. All right? So it was great. When I was 10 years old, got a $10 bill. When I was 15, got a 10 and a 5, And then she stopped when we were 18 because she gave me $100 to help with college, and I was going off to college. Did I love that? Absolutely, I loved that. Did I respond to that? Absolutely, I did. And do I still care about that relationship? Absolutely, I did. Even though she died 25 years ago. I remember that well. Now, impose that kind of thing onto your own relationship with your partners. Think in terms of not only what you communicate, but how often you communicate, and the different forms that it takes, and it will make a significant difference in how your partners view you, all right, in the same way that I viewed my Aunt Lillian. She was an old school lady, you know. She grew up when there was no distractions of first radio and then television and those kinds of things. And she knew the value of interaction and interpersonal relationship. It's one of the things that has suffered in this day and age because of our technologies. The concept of interpersonal relationships has gone down the tubes. We rely on our computers to do it for us. We rely on the internet to take our messages to our friends and relations and those kinds of things. And there are enough people out there that still really value what an interpersonal relationship means. They will respond in ways that you can't imagine when you begin to exhibit some of those kinds of behaviors. Right? There's power in regular communications, not just sometimes. One of the big arguments that we get into with a lot of missionaries is how often should I send a newsletter? First of all, let me contend that a newsletter is only one of the things that you should be sending. How often you send it depends on what else you're doing to communicate with your partners. A prayer letter, a newsletter, are those two different things? A personal communication of some other kind, a card, a note, a call, a visit. All of those are part of your communications arsenal. Got a lot of weapons there. We tend to use one. And that's kind of equivalent to, treating everything as it's a nail and our only tool is a hammer. Right? You don't want to do that. Why? Because people love the variety and they love the diversity of ways that we have to communicate. And when we fall into one pattern where we send out a quarterly newsletter that is generic and is addressed to everybody, then it's not very personal, it's less meaningful, I pay less attention to it, and it's not going to do the job in terms of satisfying you, let alone delighting you. Right? Does that make sense? Regular communication is pretty important in a marital relationship. A number of you are married in here, some of you aren't. If I don't communicate with my wife on a regular basis, that relationship's going to go sour, And there's the old stereotypes, the guy comes home from work and he kicks off his shoes and grabs the newspaper and sits down and buries himself in the paper, and maybe they have dinner together with the paper in between them and all those kinds of, the results of those kinds of things, all right? Imagine what happens when you do the same thing to your partners. Right? How much attention are you paying in that relationship? The need they have to understand what is happening as a result of their partnership with you. How much do we want to reinforce that? I make a statement here. Why do we assume that people who've invested in a life-changing ministry endeavor don't want to hear how it's going? And why is it that it's only doing something once every quarter? Or once every 6 months, or in some cases, once a year. And in some cases, not at all. Why do we assume that that's the case? If you think about it, if you have stocks or something like that, you're watching the stock market pretty regularly to say, hey, what's going on with my stuff? Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? Do I need to move money around? Do I need to do this, do that, do everything else? They're investing in your ministries. They want to know what's transpiring there. Okay? Because they're a stakeholder in that enterprise. When you begin to see your partners as stakeholders, it makes a huge difference because a stakeholder has a stake in what the results are going to be. And for the majority of your people, assuming that they're not family, they have an interest, okay? And you need to be able to make sure that that interest is met. Frequent and meaningful communications with investors is the primary obligation of a supportive missionary or staff member. It keeps the partnership healthy and it ensures continuing interest. as long as their expectations are being met. All right? As long as their expectations are being met. And we're going to talk about that for just a minute. What do we mean by partners' values and expectations? What is it that they really want? What is it that they really need? Before we go there, I want to encourage you, take time to look at these questions that we have here for reflection and application, because these are the things that will make a difference and will establish some patterns of behavior today that you will follow. If you say, look, I'm going to communicate every month in some fashion with my partners, and I'm going to make this amount of time available in order to do that, I guarantee you, you will follow through on that better than if you don't pay attention to that at all. I'll show you in a little while a framework for a plan that you can use for your communications, and it will help you keep track of how you're doing and make sure that you follow through. Determine for yourself, is there a difference between, quote, prayer partners and financial partners when it comes to communication? Is there? Should there be? Do we treat them all the same? Or is there a different value on prayer than there is on money? Is there a different value on prayer and money? What's the nature of those relationships? And how am I going to take advantage of my knowledge of where people are at? And then this one is really important. Take a moment to write a statement that defines the partnership among God, your partners, and yourself in your own ministry enterprise. What are the responsibilities of each party? Think about that. Think about that. What do we think the responsibilities are of our partners? If it's to give and pray and not do the work, then you're missing the boat. All right? They have a much deeper responsibility than you can imagine in their own hearts and minds. And the better you can reinforce that for them, then I can guarantee you, you'll be on that path to donor delight. All right? Let's move into that section where we're talking about our partners' values and expectations. First of all, why are partners different? Why are they different? If you think about, the relationships that you have outside of your partner team, whether it's people from church or friends or neighbors or any of those other things, what is it that makes partners different? Help me out with that. Why all of a sudden are we devoting so much time and effort and energy to sweating the details of how to do this better for our partners? How to maintain that support and build that support? Why? What's different about them? Any ideas?
Different backgrounds and experiences.
Backgrounds and experiences can make a difference?
Different needs from your ministry.
I'm sorry, say again?
Different needs from your ministry.
Okay.
Maybe they need to feel very much involved.
Sure. These are folks that have a common... Remember we talked about vision yesterday a little bit? And the power of a shared vision? All right? That suddenly reframes the relationship a little bit because you connected with someone who has some of your values, right? And they understand commitment, and they understand calling, or they would not be getting involved with you. They might say, oh, that's very nice, let me know how it goes. But those people who bond with you for the sake of this ministry they're in a different relationship with you. And you've got to think about some of those differences and how those differences will matter in terms of your relationship with them. Different than your friends and neighbors, etc. They're going to pray and they give. And in many cases, they go. How many of you on field assignments have had some of your partners show up and say, I want to come and visit you? It's happened on a regular basis. Alex, you guys were in Ecuador, correct? Yeah. And you had people who came down and stayed with you and visited with you and wanted to see firsthand what was going on, etc.
Three or four times.
3 or 4 times. And Marlon, you too?
Yeah, and I also went with a team from a church and actually joined them in their work team and spent those 2 weeks with them.
There you
doing
go.
exactly what they were doing.
There you
It was
go.
great.
And frequently you're called on by your ministry organization to help us coordinate visits of other donors who want to come and visit those fields as well. You know what? The world is not as big as it used to be. People hop on board a plane and they'll go anywhere in the world, and they've got the resources to do it, and the planes go there, And within hours, you can suddenly be on the other side of the world. You know, a century ago, the missionary enterprise was very different. You hopped on a boat, and people didn't see you for 4 or 5 years. And you were on the other side of the world where you could not connect and contact, and you had no idea what the conditions were for those people. Many people today are going and visiting mission fields, and they're realizing, hey, mission field today may be that you're in a city of 5 million people, and you've got a nice apartment, and you work with businessmen all the time. That may be your ministry, and it's different. It's not that much different than going to Manhattan for a vacation. You know what I'm saying? And many churches today are taking more and more responsibility on themselves to run and manage their own missions programs. And they're sending people, and they're going and visiting, and they're wanting to be a resource and wanting to help you and all those kinds of things. This is what makes them different. But the key issue is this last point. They have a stake in your life and in the results of your life given to service for God. All right? They have a stake in that. And because they have a stake, it means that you've got to relate to them in the areas of their values, their interests, and their expectations. Okay? If I'm a stakeholder in an enterprise, I want it to succeed, and I'm going to keep my eye on it to make sure that it succeeds, correct? Think about it that way, and I guarantee you it'll start to change the way you think about what I should communicate and how I should communicate. All right, what are some of those expectations that they have? Donors are looking for a number of things in their relationship with you and with your organization, all right, but primarily with you. Let me give you some ideas about what those are. First of all, worthiness of your cause, all right? It's not your worthiness, but it's the worthiness of what you're setting out to accomplish. I spent a number of years going in and out of Haiti to a children's tuberculosis hospital in Port-au-Prince. Man, I'll tell you, it was a killer. It was a killer. You go in there and you hold these little scrawny kids in your arms, and they're coughing and hacking away, and you just couldn't help but melt, you know. That's an easy thing to help people realize the worthiness of that particular cause. These kids are going to die without the aid that you can provide, without the assistance and partnership that you can provide, you know. And better yet, if you can come down and hold them yourself and see what that's all about, and try and give comfort to these poor orphan kids, you know. That's one of the things that matters. If you're engaged in Save the Whales, there's an audience for that, but it's not the same kind of audience that you get in Save the Children, all right? And so the worthiness of that cause is one of the primary things, one of the primary reasons why they're going to get on board with you. They're looking at the reputation of your organization, and can it do what it says it's going to do? They're looking at the cause and the mission that you're about and saying, is this credible? Right? Will that make sense? And do I believe in that? So you need to continually reinforce that with your partners, that in fact it is a worthy enterprise. It does make a difference. You are having an impact in lives in this way. See? That's very critical. Secondly, effectiveness. Effectiveness is vitally important. If people feel that they're involved in an enterprise that is just not going to cut it, the likelihood of staying with you is really pretty minimal. You know, they might for the sake of relationship, but you got to show them that what you're doing is making a difference. It is effective. It's having results. You are being fruitful together in your enterprise together. See? I don't want to invest in a failure. You know, Mel Brooks made a great play out of that. The producers, hey, let's put a flop together, get investors to invest in the doggone thing, and then we'll take the insurance money. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way in our world, okay? People want to get on board a winning train, and that makes a huge difference. Yeah, go ahead.
How do you communicate that when your responsibility is language learning?
When you're, I'm sorry, your
When you're
responsibility is
learning
what?
language.
When you're learning language?
When you're in that process of the beginning stages of your ministry, how do you communicate? These are the results, these are the fruitfulness I'm learning.
That's a good question. I had a discussion with some others earlier in the day about that. How do you communicate effectiveness when you're just at the very beginning? I mean, you haven't been effective yet. Well, you know what? Are you in a ministry where others are involved in that kind of work, in an area where you're going? Can you get a story or two from the archives or from one of your team members that says, tell me something about how the work that we're doing is making a difference. Can I tell a story of a life that's been transformed in that particular area? You know, this particular city in China where I'm going to be going, I've not been there, I don't know anybody, but there's a team there waiting on me. Can I get some information that shows my partners what a difference we can make together in that city? All right? When you get there, you'll have your own stories. You'll have your own contacts, you'll have the people that you're working with, and you'll be able to share those things. But on the front end, it's a little harder. You've got to dig for some information and use that information to your advantage. Alex?
I'm not involved in this type of ministry, but what do people who are going to, our friends who are going to the Middle East or to other Arab countries and Muslim countries, where there's a minuscule amount of believers and not a whole bunch ready to be picked from the tree, if you will. How do you show fruitfulness and results to your supporters in a situation like that?
Well, sometimes fruitfulness isn't a question of how many conversions we have. Sometimes fruitfulness is a question of how many contacts we've been able to make, how many friends we've been able to sit down and have coffee with. And sometimes it's a question of whether or not we've been accepted into a community in the job that we're pursuing there because we're doing tent making and those kinds of things. Sometimes fruitfulness means not being kicked out or not being killed. You know, we've succeeded in penetrating this particular tribe. And for tribal ministries,
Don't be worried,
that's
guys.
really
Don't be worried.
He's right.
He's just talking in general terms.
yes, general.
It's true, but also you have an American mindset that is oriented towards numbers and statistics and wanting to see quick results.
Sure.
And many of the countries that those of us in this room are serving in, you know, we might be fortunate to see one person come to
It's
Christ
true.
in a decade.
It's true. But you know what? There is progress being made just in being there and beginning to develop relationships with people. You know? I made a friend this week. You know, and my friend's name is Maria. And Maria and I were able to connect over a cup of coffee this week. And she shows an interest, perhaps, in learning more about why I'm here. That's progress. That's results. That's fruitfulness. You know, as Barry said yesterday, if you report back that, well, I didn't leave my building for the last 12 days because, that's not progress. People want to see that you're taking action and it's paying off in some kind of progress. Fruitfulness is not always the end game. A lot of times it's the process, it's the steps along the way. All right? I want to keep going here because we've got a lot of material to cover if we're going to get you out of here by 3:30. All right? I'm going to try by 3:30. And we'll see how it works. All right, effectiveness, benefits. Benefits is arguably the most important word in marketing. All right? Those of you who have any exposure to marketing before know that it's all about what benefits your consumer, your customer. Same is true in this. People are interested in value in their relationship. And that value comes both for your partner, for the donor, as well as for those being served. If you're going to the Middle East, if you're going to Lebanon or whatever, what's the benefit of your being there to the people that you're there to serve? Opportunity for their lives to be transformed in a variety of ways. All right? Participation with you in a variety of ways. Ultimately, the hope is that they will receive Christ, embrace Him, and their lives will be transformed. That's a tremendous benefit. What's the benefit to the partner who puts you there to make sure that that happens? What's the benefit? A chance to be involved in that kind of life transformation process? A chance to maybe someday see that person in heaven and embrace them as a brother or sister in Christ? The good feeling that comes from being involved in a worthy enterprise, you know, that's a huge benefit. We need to be able to underscore those kinds of things in our communications to people so that they see the value and they understand the value and they feel the value in their relationship with you. Right? Critical issues. Critical issues. Those are some of the values that they have. What are their expectations? Well, here's a variety of things that you can look at. First, they expect that you're going to do the work. They expect you to go over wherever that assignment is and put in the hours and put in the time and put in the process of getting the work accomplished. They cannot do it. That's why they're hiring you, okay? They expect that they are playing a role. And that role goes beyond, quote, being a donor. It goes beyond writing a check. The expectation is, as a stakeholder, I have an interest in the success or failure of this enterprise. And that means I am a player in the game. I'm not on the sidelines watching. I'm a player in the game. You need to recognize that and keep them involved in the game. That means you keep them informed. The good, the bad, the ugly, the successes, the failures, the processes, all of those things. Information makes a difference. Meaningful information makes a difference. We don't communicate for the sake of putting words on paper and sending it out so that they get something from us. It means meaningful information. That you value their partnership. That is a huge expectation on the part of your partners. Many people drop off a missionary's partner team because they feel underappreciated or unappreciated. All right? When you value their partnership, and it shows, it makes all the difference in the world for how long they stay with you. All the difference in the world. How do you show that you value their partnership? Well, another one of the critical issues, in marketing, and especially in partnership development, is saying thank you repeatedly. Repeatedly. One of my jobs early in my development career, I was a copywriter at the Christian Broadcasting Network, And one of the things that I was tasked to do every month was write, let's see, how many was it? 42 different thank you letters for different audiences of the Christian Broadcasting Network. Because we had 21 different kinds of things that people could be giving to. Whether it was the 700 Club, or whether it was Regent University, or whether it was Middle East Television, this, that, the other thing, Operation Blessing. We had 21 different things. I had to write 2 thank you letters a month for each of those, because somebody might give a gift to that at the beginning of the month and also at the end of the month. We didn't want to give you the same letter twice. How many different ways can you say thank you, for crying out loud? That was an interesting challenge. How do you keep it fresh? How do you make it sound meaningful? How many ways can you say thank you to your partners and help them feel truly valued in the partnership? Finally, they expect that together you're producing results. That comes back to that issue that we just talked about, fruitfulness. You've got to demonstrate there's fruitfulness to your ministry in some fashion on a regular basis for them to stay engaged and stay interested. Those are the things that will matter, and they will matter to your partners. Now, in contrast to that, your expectations in the relationship should hopefully match theirs. Typically, some of them look like this. Well, I'll do the work, you do the support, and that's a good relationship. Right? If you're in this just for the money, I can guarantee you that'll go over like a pregnant football. Right? Prayer, obviously we want prayer, we expect it. Do we get it all the time? No. Our partners are busy praying for their own priorities. If their priorities aren't yours, then it's a problem. Give them reasons to pray, and it'll make a difference. Show answers to prayer, and it'll make a difference. But I'm far more concerned about the needs in my own family and my kids who are having struggles and difficulties and problems, and my grandkids and all of that kind of thing, than I am about you. Unless I hear from you real reasons on a regular basis for things for us to pray about. Specific things that will matter to us. Not just the things on a prayer card, but specific things that we can remember as a family, etc. Sometimes missionaries just want to be left alone. I got that done, I'm out of here, fine. Send my prayer letter, or I'll send my newsletter every other month or so, and otherwise leave me alone. I've been in conversations with field missionaries who are so incensed that people want to come and visit them in their field. Why? Because it's a distraction. It's a horrible distraction. We can't get anything done when we're here. We got to play nursemaid and babysit these people, and oh my gosh, it's a huge distraction. And they convey that, unfortunately, to their partners. Well, what's a partner going to do? Okay, see you, Charlie. Don't need to come and visit you. I'll go and visit these other people, and I guarantee I'll give them more and be more involved in their ministry than I ever will with you. Sometimes the issue is to have a great partnership, all right? And I encourage you that your expectation is point number 4 here. I want a great partnership with the people on my team. I want a great partnership, and I want to devote myself as equally to that goal as I am to my ministry team in the field and the people that we're serving. Because without that, I may be coming home sooner than I expect. Because I gotta have to raise more support, and it's going to be a bigger distraction than having somebody come over and join me in my ministry for a week or so. All right? Having a great partnership is the goal. Let me point you to question number 2 at the bottom of page 35. And this is something that I really want you to think about. What does a mutually beneficial relationship mean in the context of you and your partner team? What benefits do you derive? What benefits do they derive from that relationship? Try and articulate those things, all right? Given what we've talked about here in this last half hour or so, try and articulate those things so that you can have a checklist. And first of all, make sure you're getting the benefits that you expect. And if you're not, then you've got to reevaluate what those benefits are. You've got to reevaluate the relationships with your team. Evaluate what benefits you're delivering to your partners. And examine how you're communicating and what you're communicating and when you're communicating to see whether or not you're in fact delivering what they expect. Okay? And more than what they expect. The interesting thing about expectations is this. If we more than meet expectations, we're home free. If we just meet expectations, then we're average. If we don't meet expectations, then we're sunk. All right? You can adopt that attitude toward this relationship issue and apply that toward every aspect of your partner maintenance activity. Then I guarantee you it's going to change the way you're able to make those partnerships really work for the long haul of the ministry. Now, this next section that we're going to deal with talks about some of the communications techniques, some of the language, some of the style issues, some of the frequency issues, and the planning issues, all of those things that will really help you, I think, radically transform your ideas about what partner communication really means.